Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you that are calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through the call, provide you with the bottom line information. We know you're busy people and have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the reset of these other currencies. We spend a few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we move to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq today. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of these currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or the purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. The most relevant piece of information as far as we're concerned is some projection with regard to the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar. While there have been some indications that the dinar could theoretically reinstitute in the near future, we're now of the opinion that January 2020 looks like the most rational and plausible date for the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar. That's for a number of reasons, and we'll touch on them here this afternoon. There are essentially three issues that Iraq is involved in right now that have a direct bearing on the reinstitution of their currency. First is they begin to finally deal with the rampant corruption that exists throughout their government at every level. Second, that they go through the process completely of the deletion of the zeros, which is basically a three-phase process. And lastly, they need the actual enforcement of Article 140 of the Constitution in order for Kurdistanis to be on board with the reinstatement and a lot of other issues that must be resolved in Iraq. So let's talk a little bit about the corruption. The Supreme Federal Court has appointed an Inspector General to investigate widespread corruption and malfeasance in the CBI. The Parliament has lifted and rescinded immunity protection for some 21 lawmakers and has already formally charged 10 of them. The Parliament has also demanded the immediate removal of 4 of Ahmadi's ministers. So they are doing everything they can to clean house. I believe this needs to be done before they will reinstitute. And what we're going to be witnessing now is the actual enforcement of the accountability and justice law. With regard to the deletion of the zeros, the CBI has been methodically transitioning from a paper currency to a digital currency. Now, one of the methods that they are going to accomplish this is by the issuance of the Visa and MasterCards domestically. Currently, approximately 80% of transactions within Iraq are done digitally, but the objective is to have at least 95% of all transactions done digitally by the end of the year. In other words, they're trying to eliminate the provisional paper currency prior to the reinstatement of their currency. The last issue is the enforcement of Article 140. Kurdistan is a semi-autonomous region. They have their own government, the Kurdistani government, and the enforcement is basically going to ensure that any non-Kurdistani individuals living in the Kurdistan region understand that they will be subject to the Kurdistan regional government and not to the government of Baghdad. So to the extent that there are differences between some laws and practices between Baghdad and the Kurdistani regional government, Arabs and non-Kurdistani individuals living in those areas will be subject to the Kurdistani law. Now, the last point I want to make has to do with the reinstatement rate of the Iraqi dinar. Now, what I'm going to discuss here is merely my personal opinion based on everything that I've read and everything that I've gleaned from individuals whose opinion I respect and rely on. The reinstatement could come in anywhere from $1 to $3 US per dinar. But again, my opinion is, and I've stated this repeatedly in the past, is that the reinstatement will involve the dinar being worth slightly more than the dollar, just enough to ensure that the dollar is no longer in use and that the dinar domestically will be in use. I also believe that it will rather quickly move to over $3. Now, the only concern I have with this is the potential tax traps for Americans. If, for example, the Iraqi dinar were to come in at a float in January, we would not have to pay any taxes until April 15th, meaning that we would have time to compel the IRS to commit to what the actual tax status is for the profit on the exchange. And it would also allow us to hold the currency till April in the event it does come out at a float so that it can appreciate hopefully to over $3. On the other hand, if the reinstatement were to come, say, in mid or late March of next year, I don't anticipate that, but if it were, that would simply not give us time to ascertain either the tax implications or allowing us to hold the currency to allow it to appreciate if it comes in at a lower float. But I do believe that we're looking at January 2020, again, as the most rational, reasonable, and plausible date for the reinstatement, having to do with the budget and then these other issues that I've discussed. Now, that provides sufficient times for individuals to get their affairs in order prior to the reinstatement and revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, many individuals may not know what needs to be done in order to get their affairs in order pre-RV. So Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your dinar and other pre-valued currencies to that trust package. Phase 2, post-RV, involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the reinstatement and then revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. So let's start with Phase 1, which is, again, the establishment of your package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your various pre-valued currencies to that trust package. Now, there are a number of entities one can establish to provide some asset protection. For example, some individuals have established LLCs and sub-S corporations. Now, they do provide some asset protection by primarily dividing your business interests from your private and personal interests. However, they do not provide bulletproof asset protection. Court jurisdictions have routinely ruled that an LLC or a sub-S corporation that's owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So that makes these entities superior for running a business, but inferior for asset protection. Then there are something called a revocable trust. Many individuals have established revocable trusts because they will allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate, and if properly structured, can double the federal estate tax exemption. But revocable trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they would be insufficient in this situation. Individuals have established single irrevocable trusts, and they will provide privacy and some asset protection. The reason I say some asset protection is because in the event that any asset within a single irrevocable trust is involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily bring all of your other assets and net worth into that civil litigation, for the simple reason that everything is owned by the same entity. To avoid these flaws, we have established a package of irrevocable trusts, and I will explain to you how it will protect your currencies, how it will protect the growth of those currencies via the exchange to the U.S. dollar, and how it will protect all of your other assets post-RV. There are a number of reasons why you need to establish your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. First, by establishing this trust package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within our trust package are legally sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, this trust package will allow you to avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming, it would be frustrating, and frankly, it will probably cost you more than our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your asset protection trust package is in place and your pre-RV currencies have been assigned to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust package. Now, that's important for two reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an audit if this revaluation were to occur within our trust package. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a full-blown 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because within this package is a special gift subtrust that we have created. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves or giving them the lump sum after you have done the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, then you can gift to them through this specially designed gift subtrust. By gifting through this subtrust, that means that their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. The language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning that you can gift these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And because you're gifting through this subtrust, you will have complete control of those post-RV proceeds, meaning that you can manage, invest, and distribute this money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate. a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much each stands to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs would have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be passed on to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Scenario number 2, and by the way, scenario number 1 is not only unacceptable, but it's completely and totally avoidable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust product has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once this prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currency at the time you transferred it to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This is created through a legal asset protection strategy referred to as segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer those currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you want to make some purchases. But you also want to make sure that you do not suffer civil litigation for a future bad act after you have acquired this wealth. So again, now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate sub-trust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why does this protect you from future bad acts in the event someone attempts to sue you? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your sub-trusts of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important from an asset protection standpoint. All of your other assets are safely protected in other sub-trusts. Now, why are they protected? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities or persons, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity in this civil litigation. So your package of trusts work very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist and instruct you with the funding and management of your trust packages. Many of our clients have expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with a direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there. Our offshore specialists will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can in some cases substantially reduce and even eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you want to get money out of the banks and it work in other markets. Lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-based Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial portion of your net worth invested in tangible assets. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned pre-RV currencies, then hold financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift subtrust, and 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold houses, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But a few years back, when we decided to work with Dinarians, we knew that that price tag was just going to be unaffordable for many. So by basically restructuring and simplifying that package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's simply not possible, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You would make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you would pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you whatever way works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place for all of the reasons that we've stated. Now, the only other cost to this trust product for life are the nominal paralegal fees that you would incur by either making changes in the legal terms of the trust package or funding the subtrusts. There is no additional cost for the 10 trust package documents. Again, only the cost of the paralegal fees, which is going to be extremely nominal. For example, post-RV, you decide to purchase a $3 million beach house. It would only cost you between $100 and $150 in paralegal fees to create and fund a subtrust to protect a $3 million home. So again, this trust package is going to work for you for life. Now we're going to go to the Q&A in just a moment, but before we do, and again for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, offshore planning, and asset protection. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. And the more you tend to possess, the greater magnet you become for civil litigation. So in point of fact, the only way you can manage, protect, and control everything and at all times is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. Now, as I stated, we are going to be going to the Q&A here in just a moment. If the things we've discussed here intrigue you, I strongly suggest that you get our initial package. You're under absolutely no obligation by receiving this package, although it does include everything you need if you should decide to go ahead and establish your asset protection trust. There's a lot of information there about us, about the revaluation, about trusts in general. You can review the package, contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. So I'm going to open the Q&A. When I do, 2 quick rules. Number 1, we do not take service calls on the Q&A. Our existing clients can contact us by phone or email if they have questions. And there are about a half a dozen people that have contacted me this week and that I've not yet had an opportunity to get back to. I will be getting back to you right after this call. Second, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen in order to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to open now. While I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD Calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3, and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstatement of the dinar and these other currencies, emails will probably go out weekly. Okay, our first caller here is area code 312. That's 312. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning or afternoon to you.
Yes, sir. How you doing, Les?
I'm doing fine. How are you today, Jim?
I'm doing fine, too. What can I do for you, my friend?
I've got a question. I've seen video of the Iraqis using the ATM machines. Is that
yes.
a sign that they have activated their currency?
Well, my understanding is the ATM machines are of limited use. What's happened is the CBI has gone ahead and used the vendors, the Visa and the MasterCard, to assist them with the transition to completely digital financial transactions, eliminate all paper transactions. So to that end, when you're operating digitally, now let's say you went to an ATM machine and you deposited, I'm just going to make 1,000 dinar. You had 1,000 dinar in cash, you deposited in the ATM. All right.
Okay.
You cannot go back in an hour and get that $1,000. That $1,000 is now digital. It's on your card. You will not be able to use paper money. And the objective is to get at least 95% of all paper money, and we're talking about the provisional currency, out of circulation, so that when they do reval and the new currency is available, there will be no 3-0 currencies floating around out there.
So this is how they get them to use the ATMs, take the 3-digit currency off the market, away, go digital,
now,
and then we RV. Okay.
Right. Now, the other issue is this. Since Iraqi nationals, since the CBI will not recognize the 3 zeros after the reinstatement, why do they feel the need to gather, to collect? Because the deletion of the zeros really means the collection of the provisional. Why do they need to collect it if the Iraqi nationals will not see the 3 zeros recognized? The reason they need to collect it is because of the rampant corruption. People are trying to smuggle the money out of Iraq into the hands of international groups or individuals to cut them a deal when they try to go ahead and exchange it using the 3 zeros. So they just want to collect as much of it as they can. Their target is 95%, which they feel they can achieve by the end of the year. That's also another reason that I'm beginning to really believe that the reinstatement will not occur until January. It all lines up. That's when they're going to have their 2020 budget completed. They can put the new rate in there. They can get 95% of the provisional currency collected in country. So, and that's why the Visa and the MasterCard are active in country. Now, the idea, and some people are saying, well, why can't they use the card internationally? It's because once the rate is not on the Forex, there's no way they can calculate the value of the dinar when it's not on the Forex. So the cards, the Visa, MasterCard, are solely for internal in-country consumption, and again, it's to facilitate the digitizing of the currency until they can collect all the 3 zeros.
Okay, so last year when they had reportedly collected, can't remember, it was a very high percentage of the 3-digit provisional currency from these folks. Now they're saying they have not.
Yes, and guess why? Because the corrupt officials have been hoarding it. So their objective here is to say you can't use the paper money. You're going to need to place it in an ATM and utilize the digital card. Therefore,
okay.
In other words, unless you get the money out of the country, if you're an Iraqi citizen, they're not going to recognize the 3 zeros. So if you're holding a $25,000 note, it's $25. It's not $25,000. So they might as well
hold on to it. Yeah. Turn it in.
Turn it in and get credit for it digitally.
Yes.
Because they're not going to. It's not. Yeah, and that's basically what's going on. Now they estimate that they'll have 95% of it. Whether they do or not. Let's say they calculate it's 93%. Does that mean that they're not going to reval in January? No, I don't think so. I think that's it's a rounding error. I really am to the point of view now. I could be wrong. Certainly, I would say to people, we don't know what's going to happen. So, if you don't have your trust in place and your currency is assigned to it, I suggest you send us your application today. But if I had to hazard a guess as to when it's going to happen, something like 80% of all revals have happened in January. The rest have happened in September because most countries' fiscal year begins in September. So Iraq's fiscal year begins in January. Their new 2020 budget is effective in January. They have all these other issues I discussed that they want to clean up. So, it just seems to me January is the date.
Okay. All right. Well, you took care of my other question. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Have a great day, Jim.
You too. Take care, Les.
Yeah.
Well, Les was our only caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. For our newer callers, I hope you found this informative, and I hope this intrigues you to the point where you'll contact us, get our initial package. Again, you're under absolutely no obligation whatsoever. There's a lot of valuable information in that package. You can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. If you should decide to proceed, everything you need is included in the package. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get an emergency email out and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a great week, everyone, and thanks for listening.